Hello and welcome to today's special interview where we want to look at one of the most important resources that we have to take care of. Most of the times, when we don't actually pay attention to this resource, but it's one of it that makes our well-being and wellness. And so today we try and look at water and wellness. And so in studio today, I have my guest, and on my immediate right, I have Michael Msumali, who is Technical Program Manager for Child Protection. Welcome to today's program.
Thanks a lot, Faith, and we are so excited to be here to discuss on one of the most important resources that we have, and also how that benefits all of us and why that is very, very important, especially that's a build-up towards the launch of the International Water Day that is coming on Saturday. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, great. And after him is Brian Tiseba, who is Development Facilitator for WASH. Welcome to today's program.
Thank you so much, Faith. I'm thrilled to be here and to be part of the interview.
Great.
Yeah.
And on the far end there, I have Jared Caputo, who is Associate Director for Advocacy. Welcome to today's program.
Thank you so much, Faith. I'm also very happy to be part of this chat.
Great to have this team in studio.
Thank you.
We are talking of water as one of the, very important resource. But why water?
Well, Faith, water is a very important resource, not only for Zambia, but for the world all over. You may recall that water plays an important role for our health and well-being. Okay, it also plays an important role for us to be able to provide food, and nutritious food is cooked by water. So it has got a multiple importance. At economic level, we are talking of food production, we use water. So it also plays an important role for us to maintain an eco diversity. Okay, so it supports aqua life, if you may want to call it that way. It also regulates the temperatures that we have. Without water, Lily, we cannot go anywhere. Yeah.
Very true.
So that's the most important usage of water. Yeah.
We're looking at water as one of the most, very useful resource. But what is the linkage between, clean water provision to the community and the child?
Oh, thanks a lot, Faith. I think you'd want to know, or you already know, that actually water is part of human rights. Actually, it's part of a fundamental human right. And we know that if you look at children, for example, children are human beings as well. And they're part and parcel of the human rights that we're talking about. We have specific rights for the children, the ones that we call child rights, which are basically a subset of the entire human rights. And if you look at article number 24, 25 of children's rights, it talks about the importance of children able to access clean and safe water.
Safe water.
Yes, because it's critical for them. We know that children are still developing. Children, they need to survive. And without water, it becomes very difficult for children to survive. It becomes difficult for children to develop. We know that when water is not properly accessed, especially well managed, it becomes a risk to many children, especially to a hazard, a big time hazard, to diseases such as cholera, which are waterborne diseases, diarrhea diseases. And I think as a country, we have witnessed a bit of a difficulty in that particular area. You remember not too long ago, we had a cholera situation in this country that affected a lot of people, especially women and children. That were affected. We even lost quite a number of children because of cholera. And we know that cholera is a waterborne disease that's affected by not properly managing water in our country. But you also want to know that actually when it comes to child protection, water is very, very critical. We know that in rural areas, it's difficult sometimes to access water closer to households. In fact, more than maybe 40% of our households do not have access to safe and clean water. Yeah, they have to walk, some of them about maybe 2.5, others 5 kilometers to go and access water. Yeah. And in that process, we have seen situations whereby some children are actually taken advantage of by some perpetrators. As they try to go and draw water on the way, someone who will be able to hide and maybe exploit a child, abuse a child, or maybe as they're coming from drawing water to their house in preparation for education, or maybe just usage, like what my colleague has said at home, they're taking advantage of. So when we bring water closer to the people, closer to households as much as we can, we know that we are protecting children from being abused on the way or coming back from drawing water, which is very, very critical. And a lot of other issues can still be talked about around that. An issue of education, for example, Faith. We know that when children are walking long distances to go and draw water, access to water, it becomes a burden instead of becoming an enabler for them to get into school. You know, like every day before going to school, I have to walk, say, maybe 5 kilometers. You know, by the time I'm coming back, I'm already tired. And I'm told to go to school. So I'll start attaching now drawing water to education. So I'll ask myself, then it's good, it's as good as me staying home instead of me going to draw water, because when I go to draw water, every time I get tired and I have to go to school.
I have to go to school.
Yeah, and when I get to school again, I'm tired. My concentration level goes down and I feel a little bit discouraged. It becomes like a burden instead of becoming an enabler.
An enabler.
Yeah.
Right, quite right there. Jared, we are talking of water, and your organization has got a program to do with school feeding children, you know. So when we look at this, how critical is it in realizing the nutritious meals that these our children should be having in school? What is your take on that?
Thank you so much, Faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, as part of the Enough campaign,
Yeah.
one of the issues that we are advocating for is that the school-going children should have access to nutritious meals in those schools, standard nutritious meals.
Yeah.
And in this arrangement, or in this affair, water is critical, because you know that without, you know, without having, you know, availability to safe, clean water, so this definitely will have negative impacts. One, in terms of producing the kind of food that the children need to have. For instance, right now in the campaign, what we are looking at is in those schools where we have the school-going children, we want to see the production units get revived. But now, in the absence of water, so it would be difficult, for instance, to grow some of the crops for the children in those schools. So a component of water is critical to growing food for the school-going children. But apart from that, I think my colleagues also mentioned that water is very, very important in preparing food, because in those schools where we are providing the school meals, it must be, there must be water available to cook the food and to wash the food, because the food must be washed, because it's part of it. So in the absence of this water, then it becomes very, very difficult for us actually to ensure that the children have access to health meals. So in this equation, all that I can say is that really the aspect of water is very, very crucial.
Very critical. Great. I know I have to come to Brian, but before then, Michael, kindly speak to the issue of ending child marriages in connection to water, because you had actually mentioned to say the school-going children have to go to school, they have to fetch water from long distances and all that. But what is the connection between water and ending child marriage?
Faith, you're right. There's a very good connection in terms of ending child marriage. I think, like you know, in this country we have grappled a little bit with child marriage. Now we're talking about forced marriage as well, which I think has been topping not only in this country, but I think in Africa, even world, we have one of the highest percentage, rating between 29%, 30%. I think that's been around that percentage for some time. If it drops, it's just about maybe a percentage or so, which is not very, very good. And we know that once children are married off or they're forced into marriage, they drop from school. Yeah. And when they drop from school, we know that the cycle of poverty continues, and they continue being abused in the communities where they are, and poverty becomes a norm. So when we talk about water in this case, when these children are not provided safe and clean water. They taken advantage of, maybe as they're going to draw water and coming back home, like I said, or if they don't go to school because of lack of it. Or some of them, if you talk about those that, like girls, for example, those that go to school and when there's no proper water, when it's that time of the month when they are having their mens and they would want to make sure that there's clean water at the school, and they know that there's no clean water at the school to help them to maintain menstrual hygiene. Yeah, they wouldn't want to go to school.
Not at all.
Yeah, and when they don't go to school, their performance goes down. Even their attendance goes down. And eventually they lose interest in terms of school. What happens when they lose interest in terms of school, Faith? They stay home. The next thing that we hear is they're married off. The next thing that we hear is they're forced into marriage, because parents will say, what are you doing here? You're not contributing in any way. It's better to get married and start contributing in one way or the other. They're forced into marriage. And like again I said, that affects their well-being, that affects their development, that affects their the way they look at the world altogether. And again, the circle of poverty continues in the community, which affects the economy of this country ultimately, because we know that our children won't be able to be educated, they won't be able to have skills, they won't be able to have opportunities for them to contribute to the economy of this country.
Development of the country.
Yeah.
I'm looking and I'm just having an interest. On your T-shirt, it's written, "I wash." What is this eye wash all about? Is this the washing of hands? Is it just, we're talking of water here. What is that eye wash?
Yes, you could be right. It's also part of the washing of hands.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a program. It's called Integrated Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Program for World Vision Zambia.
Okay.
So under this project or program, we have multiple things that we do or activities. Okay, one of the activities that we do is actually the provision of clean water. Like we are talking. So this is being done by drilling boreholes, by doing what we call mechanizations, taking tap water right at the household. So we are doing multiple things. We also do menstrual hygiene, water for menstrual hygiene management in schools. I think from where Michael is ended, you realize that on average, a girl child misses 5 days in a month. Yes.
Every month.
Yes. So if you calculate that 5 days times like 3 months, that's 15 days. Okay, one term. So it comes to about 45 days, roughly about that.
Yeah.
The girl child is not attending school. Yeah. So to address that, we are taking the water in the school. Coupled with that, we are also providing menstrual hygiene management facilities to ensure that the girl child we are able to keep the girl child in school. We also train the girl child on how to make what we call usable sanitary pads that are available at the school. So we have the showers there, we have the soap there, we have the menstrual hygiene pads there. So that when it's that time of the month, the girl child goes to the teacher and ask for those things, and they can go and change and be in school. Okay. By so doing, we are enhancing the performance of the girl child, and that is our goal. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I like the fact that you have zeroed into this girl child, because actually we make the world.
Yeah, indeed.
But maybe coming to Gerard, how fundamental is your campaign, your Enough campaign towards this goal?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
The Enough campaign is a global campaign, meaning that it's a campaign that is being implemented in countries where World Vision has its presence. And what basically this campaign is all about is we are calling for an end to child hunger and malnutrition. Okay. And basically because we have actually noticed a surge in cases of child hunger and malnutrition globally, and in particular even in our country as Zambia. And as you are aware, the farming season of 23 to 2024 was actually crucial. It was critical because it was during that period when we lost a lot of crops, and we know that about 1 million hectares of our crops were lost because of drought. the dry spells that we experienced were severe. And so this has had a lot of impact, especially on the most vulnerable members of our society. And you know that the most vulnerable members of our society, that's the children that we have and the women.
And the women.
So these are the ones that actually bear, you know, the serious consequences of hunger and malnutrition. But looking at the focus of the campaign, so basically what we are calling for, especially looking at the nature of the campaign, is number one, we want first the malnourished children, the hungry children, that their voices are heard,
Okay.
and that they are actually prioritized
Okay.
in funding and in policies.
Okay.
We know also that this year, in March, I think between 26 to 28, there is the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris. And one of the issues actually, which is going to be under discussion, is the same issue of ending hunger and malnutrition.
Hunger and malnutrition.
And looking at the core of this campaign, we want especially to see this special commitment by the government to increase funding towards nutrition programs in the country. So it's one of the issues actually that we want to see happen. But more so, we know that there are several policies, nutrition policies that are in place. And what we want to see happen, one, let me give an example. We have the National Food and Nutrition Policy, which is actually under review right now.
Yeah.
So what we want to see is that government should be able to integrate the voices of the children in this policy review process, because these are the people that are actually bearing the brunt of hunger and malnutrition, and so they have the solutions to actually provide or to give. But apart from that, we want also to see to it that the children are well fed and nourished, and that they are resilient. So in doing so, we want to see a situation where families are actually able to produce enough nutritious food.
Okay.
Faith, you may know that as a country and as a generation of Zambians, we have local seed. So we are trying to promote local seed in the production of food, because we know that this seed is actually very drought resistant.
Yeah.
And it can, you know, withstand very difficult
And very
conditions.
nutritious, actually.
And it's very nutritious.
Yes.
So we are actually, this campaign, promoting that families use this seed to grow the food. But we also want to see that the school meals rolled out. Government should, you know, ambitiously roll out this school meals program to all the 116 districts in this country, and increase funding towards the school meals.
School meals.
We know that currently government is doing so, but not covering all the 116 districts. And we also know that at the moment, government also does provide some funding towards school meals, but it is not 100%.
Okay.
So we want actually to see to it that government provides those meals
Great.
in those 116 meals,
Great.
districts.
Okay.
Then added to it, you know, this campaign is also about social behavior change. We are looking at changing nutrition practices in most of our communities, because we know that somehow, even if food might be there, but the combination of the food in terms of the way people eat that food, sometimes they do not know what it takes to have a balanced meal.
Okay.
And so we want to raise that much awareness, and that especially the caregivers, the mothers out there, know what kind of food to give to a child and when to give that food to a child.
Okay. I know you've really labored to explain, and at least I know the viewers have gotten something. Maybe picking one thing from what you've said in terms of policy and all that. Michael, when you look at child protection, how should the implementation be? Because we're talking of child-related, laws and everything else that have to talk to that. What could be your take on how best we can actually be part of this so that we see to it that the child is protected, the child is provided for?
Faith, thanks a lot for that question. Let me begin by saying we want to appreciate the government for bringing the free education policy, which I think we have seen that it's actually yielding very, very good results in terms of educating the masses in this country. When you look at the children that we couldn't go to school because of all those barriers that were there, but now they're able to get into school. So when we're trying to combine with water, we are trying to push the agenda that even as much as our children are getting into school, they're supposed to go to school and be able to go and have access to clean and safe water, to be able to complement their learning, to be able to make sure that they don't drop out of school, to make sure that children attendance is actually enhanced because of access to water. But again, additionally, we still want to thank the government through working with NGOs and other sectors, the private sector and civil society organization. I think we saw the enactment of the Children's Code Act, which I think came to effect immediately when the government came into power. Again, we want to appreciate the government for taking lead in making sure that that law, which was a bill, became a law. We know that in this country we grappled with a lot of pieces of registration that were not speaking to each other very, very well. But now with the Children's Code Act, we know that it's mandatory to make sure that we take care of our children. Negligence is not anything that we talk about now. The law is very, very firm that it's our duty as parents to make sure that children, they go to school. And as they go to school safe, they go to school making sure that they have eaten, speaking on what my colleague was talking about, making sure that they go to school, they have bathed, they're clean, and water is also provided for. And laws are very, very important. We are working with other stakeholders to make sure that people understand that there's a law in place, and if you violate this law, you'll be able to go in for it.
Exactly.
And as World Vision, we are part of a joining force of different organizational partners that are like-minded, and we are trying to make sure that we popularize the importance of this law, that children are supposed to be protected, they're supposed to go to school, they're supposed to have access to water, their rights are supposed to be upheld. So part of our duty as World Vision in that particular consortium with other NGOs is to make sure that we interpret the law. We try to make sure that we make it more child-friendly for people to be able to understand the law. Sometimes there are all these law jargons that are in the law, and the law is out there, but people don't really understand the content.
What it is.
So we're trying to make it more simplified a version. Working with some consultants and other partners. And apart from that, we want to make sure that the law is taken out there, it's popularized out there. We are not in all the districts as World Vision, and we know that we can't manage to reach all the districts and all the parents and all the children. But working with others and in a network environment, we can be able to make sure that the law goes out there. Great.
Well, I know for sure that you are not in all the districts, as you have said, but I think you are making great impact to that effect. And looking at, the way things are, that even brings me to the question. Brian, we're talking of climate change, which has really affected all of us in one way or the other. Which maybe programs, or how best can we integrate our WASH program in this scenario to see to it that at least we look for programs which are really resilient into getting what we want at the end of the day. What is your WASH program doing in terms of climate change vis-a-vis your program?
Thank you so much, Faith, for that question. Like I earlier alluded to, our WASH program is an integrated one. So we have programs that are dealing specifically with issues of climate change. So under the WASH program, one of the things that we are doing is that we are encouraging communities, not to settle in watershed areas. Not to, for example, cultivate along the water bodies. Because that has an effect on the water bodies. So you find that with time, if that continues, you find that there's a lot of siltation getting into our water bodies. So they are becoming shallower and shallower and shallower. Eventually, we will lose out on the streams. So we are very particular with that as an organization. We are integrating that part climate change mitigation measure. Yeah. Then aside that, we are also encouraging communities to plant trees around the water sources, for example, boreholes.
Yes.
Yeah, we are doing this because we understand that trees hold water. Yeah, wherever there are no trees, you will not find water.
You will not find water.
Trees are part of the most important water cycle.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, so we are encouraging that as a WASH program. Aside that, we are also encouraging communities to be smart on the way they use water, because I think this is a precious resource that we cannot afford to lose out.
And at times we're actually just wasteful.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we are into that space as well. So to ensure that at least we, for example, we use the irrigation, which like uses very limited water, as opposed to flood irrigation, which takes away a lot of water. So we are into that space as well. So we want to ensure that communities are well aware on how they can utilize this resource in a more prudent manner, whilst promoting sustainability for future generations.
Future generation.
Yeah.
Great. Enough campaign. On your advocacy part, what is your word towards this core that we're looking at on today's program?
Yeah, I think looking at the Enough campaign, the core that I have is we are talking about water and the importance of water, and the issue of water is actually key to the campaign itself for a number of reasons. And one issue is there is a relationship between water and nutrition. And as it is said, water is life.
What is
So
life?
water is food. And so looking at the Enough campaign, what we are calling for is one, we want to see to it that most of the people actually have access to safe, clean water. Because good water, safe, clean water actually prevents diseases. The challenge that comes with, for instance, contaminated water, when people consume contaminated water, is that it actually leads to other diseases, especially waterborne diseases.
Yes.
And this even disturbs the aspect of nutrition. So for instance, if a person has diarrhea, even if that person can eat whatever kind of food that person, no matter how nutritious it might be, the system, the stomach is disturbed.
Yeah.
So there is a little or minimal absorption of that food into the body stream. And so this is why we are calling for access to safe, clean water as, you know, the Enough campaign.
Wow. I know that we can actually go on, because this is a resource that actually all of us are part to it. Minus it, we cannot actually survive.
Yeah.
You have mentioned of one or two issues to do with challenges. And so, Brian, just briefly, any other challenge that you can add to what Mr. Kaputwa said?
The challenges in terms of access to water?
Access to water.
Okay, so we are facing multiple challenges. I think you're aware that there's a recent case where the stream has been polluted in the Copper Belt.
Exactly.
Yeah, so those are one of the challenges that we are facing, industrial pollution into our river bodies.
Okay.
Yeah, so you realize that there are people that are fetching water down the stream, and so these will have negative impact
Okay.
on their health and on their agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges. Yeah, the other challenge that we are seeing coming through is that if we don't improve our access to water, to this resource, it's likely that the economy will be affected because there will be no production. Yeah, water is used for production. I think the president is at hand, where he was saying we need to make sure that we irrigate. Yeah, okay? So now if there's no access, how do we irrigate? Yeah, so we need to preserve this resource for irrigation, so that we can produce more food in line with the climate change.
Issues. Well, I know that water as it is, we can actually talk about this subject, you know, for hours and hours. But I know that 22nd March, you know, is World Water Day. Why are we part of this call before we can actually give in our closing remarks? Maybe Mark can take it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think as World Vision, we are part of other organizations. We are part of the government. We are in the community where we are saving children, we are saving the most vulnerable people there. And our mandate is make sure that the well-being of children, the well-being of the people that are vulnerable is actually enhanced. And we can't talk about the well-being without talking about water.
Exactly.
So we are part and parcel of the organizations that are calling for safe and clean water for everybody in the community. And we need to take advantage of this day to strengthen our message on the importance of access, on the importance of management of water by everybody. We are lobbying different organizations, the government and donors to make sure that there is deliberate effort in terms of investing in water management, water access as well. It's not for one organization. This is supposed to be a multi-sectoral approach in terms of access and management of water. So the reason why we are coming together with the rest of the world, including the Zambian government, is to make sure that we enhance our efforts. Is to make sure that there's impact in terms of access and management of water. Is to make sure that we all come to a place where we can think together, we can innovate together, we can plan together, we can share knowledge and skills on how best water can be managed, how best water can be able to be accessed by everybody, because it's a mandatory that everyone's supposed to access water, and it's a right for everybody. Like we all said, it is life. Water is life indeed.
Well said. Gerard, under 1 minute, what would be your word of appeal to the general public?
Well, my word of appeal to the general public is, number one, through the Enough campaign, we are calling for water conservation, but we are also calling for more piped water, mechanized systems that provide this water for purposes of, one, irrigation of the food, the crops that we need to grow.
Brian, under a minute.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I just want to add a bit on what Michael said. Yeah, I think Zambia is part of the 2030 campaign. Yeah, dealing with SDG. So we are trying to mobilize everyone now to realize the importance of providing access to clean water to the community, so that we are, as a country, we are able to achieve the 2030.
The 2030 agenda.
So my word goes out there to the community to say, let's preserve this scarce resource that we have. Every one of us has got a part to do in this conservation of water.
All right. Michael, child protection.
Yes.
Under a minute.
Under a minute, indeed.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. For me, I think let's not forget the children as well. As we talk about water, I know different stakeholders are coming on board. Children are part of the stakeholders as well. It is said nothing about us without us, nothing about children without children as well. Let's engage them, let them participate in the conversations around the importance of water as well, in the schools, clubs. World Vision has got what we call WASH clubs that we have. And I know many organizations have got clubs as well. Let's engage the children to also have conversations, to make decisions on the importance of water and why they need to remain in school when it comes to water. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. As you are saying, we cannot just live without this resource. And so we are really thankful, and we hope that we'll have you on after the launch so that we can even talk some more. Well, viewers, on that note, we've come to the end of today's program. On set, I had Michael Msumali, who is Technical Program Manager, Child Protection from World Vision. I also had Brian Seba, who is Development Facilitator for WASH, just as Gerard Caputo, Associate Director for Advocacy. Let's take care of this resource, for without it, we cannot actually not live as a people. And so from me, Faith Mutale, let's keep all health matters, health issues being online or offline. From the rest of the team, it is goodbye for now.